Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Bonjour, good day. I want to start off by talking about the Emergency Act that we called for. I want to be very clear, the situation in Ontario is disastrous. The situation has become very critical. We have heard from healthcare workers who are at the brink. They are seeing entire families being admitted into the ICU units. We know that we're getting to a point where doctors are having to decide who gets access to a ventilator based on who is more likely to survive. Things are very serious. And that's why we called for Justin Trudeau to declare a public welfare emergency and use the Emergencies Act specifically for getting the vaccine to the people who need it most and to improve access to paid sick leave. These are fundamental and vital, and we need to do them immediately to save lives. Secondly, I want to talk about the budget. There are things there that we wanted to see that are not, including a tax on the ultra-rich, making sure we move forward with pharmacare, and another number of other measures. But there's some things there that we fought for a long time. We wanted childcare, and we campaigned on it previously in 2015 and 2019. We want a universal, affordable, accessible childcare. And we campaigned on increasing the federal minimum wage. At 2015, the Liberals were opposed to it and campaigned hard against it and now have come around. But here's the thing. If the Liberals actually want to do this, let's get it done. We're ready. What's the next step? What's the legislation required? If you want to actually do this, we are more than ready. Let's start setting timelines. Let's look at the legislative schedule. We are going to pass any legislation to get the minimum wage raised right away. Let's make that happen. There's no reason to wait. The Liberals have promised to do this by the end of 2020. We're halfway through 2021. What's the delay? If there's legislation needed, we can do it. On childcare, the same thing. Any legislation needed to pass a universal, accessible, affordable childcare, we are there. Let's do this. Let's get it done. Donc, je vais commencer en parlant un peu de la situation en Ontario. C'est une crise urgente. La situation est désastreuse et on doit agir dès maintenant. Ça, c'est pourquoi on a exigé le gouvernement libéral et le Premier ministre de déclarer une urgence de bien-être et d'utiliser la loi sur les mesures d'urgence pour mettre en œuvre des actions immédiates pour aider les gens. Ça veut dire s'assurer les gens qui en ont le plus besoin des vaccins reçoivent le vaccin le plus rapide possible. Et deuxièmement, qu'on améliore accès aux congés de maladie payés pour s'assurer que les travailleurs et travailleuses peuvent rester chez eux, ont le temps pour être vaccinés. C'est une situation, c'est urgente et on doit agir de maintenant. Deuxièmement, je veux parler du budget. Il y a quelque chose qui n'est pas là, qu'on a voulu voir, comme une taxe sur les ultra-riches, un plan pour aller de l'avant avec l'assurance médicaments universelle et entièrement publique. Mais il y a quelque chose là qui sont exactement ce qu'on a proposé dans le passé. On a déjà proposé l'idée d'augmenter le salaire minimum fédéral. Donc, on est là, on est d'accord. Et avec un système de garderie accessible, universel, on est aussi d'accord. On a promis de faire ça dans nos anciennes campagnes. Donc, ce qu'on propose maintenant, qu'est-ce qu'on entend? On peut le faire tout de suite. C'est quoi les prochaines étapes? Si on a besoin de passer des projets de loi pour aller de l'avant avec un système de garderie universel à travers le pays, on est prêt. Qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire? On est là pour faire passer ces lois. Si on veut augmenter vraiment, si le libéral veut vraiment augmenter le salaire minimum, c'est quoi la prochaine étape? Est-ce qu'ils ont besoin de nous pour passer un projet de loi? Est-ce qu'ils peuvent le faire avec le cabinet? N'importe quoi, avec ces deux choses qu'on a déjà promis dans nos anciennes campagnes, on veut aller de l'avant, on va le faire tout de suite. Donc, c'est quoi les timelines, c'est quoi les deadlines? On est là pour le faire. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Those are my opening comments. Ready for your questions. Je suis prêt pour vos questions.
donc passer à la période de questions. Un petit rappel, une question de suivi. One question, one follow-up. Opérateur, voilà une première question.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star one at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. There will be a brief pause while the participant register for questions. Il y aura un court délai pour permettre de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. La première question, the first question is from Catherine Lévesque, La Presse canadienne. Please go ahead, your line is open. Votre ligne est ouverte.
Bonjour, M. Singh. Est-ce que votre parti a décidé comment il allait voter pour le sous-amendement du Bloc, l'amendement des conservateurs et le budget fédéral en tant que tel dans les prochains jours? Et si oui, pouvez-vous nous dire quelles sont vos décisions comme caucus? Merci.
OK. Est-ce que vous pouvez répéter la question? Je comprends en général, ça touche l'amendement et le sous-amendement proposé par le Bloc, mais est-ce que vous pouvez le répéter, s'il vous plaît?
Oui, j'aimerais juste savoir comment le NPD va voter sur le sous-amendement du Bloc. Le vote a lieu aujourd'hui. L'amendement du Parti conservateur sur le budget et sur le budget, le vote aura lieu lundi prochain.
OK, d'accord. Donc, avec les amendements, ce qu'on a dit comme parti et comme chef, c'est le fait que ce n'est pas le temps de déclencher une élection. J'étais ferme sur cette question et je vais continuer d'être ferme. On a déjà vu la réponse des Canadiens et Canadiennes quand ils étaient posés la question et ils ont dit que ça va être injuste et aussi pas sécuritaire d'avoir une élection. Donc, on va voter effectivement contre l'idée d'avoir une élection parce que le gouvernement libéral a choisi de dire que c'est un vote de confiance. Donc, on va voter contre une élection. On appuie le concept, le principe du sous-amendement. Donc, on va avoir quelques-uns de nos députés qui vont l'appuyer pour montrer que oui, on est d'accord avec l'idée, mais on n'est pas d'accord avec l'idée de déclencher une élection.
OK, merci.
Je dois le répéter en anglais et puis votre CV.
Oui,
donnez-moi un instant, s'il vous plaît. So, with respect to how we're voting, we have been very clear and I've been very firm on this point that Canadians have said as well that having an election right now would be unfair and unsafe to them. And I agree. And so I will not be in any way triggering an election because the Liberals have said that this is a confidence vote. So I will not be voting for an election. I will be voting against having an election. I wanted that to be very clear. We do support the sub-amendment proposed by the Bloc, so we'll have a couple of our members supporting that sub-amendment to indicate that we do agree with the principles, but we do not believe it is a right thing to do. In fact, it's the wrong thing to do to have an election right now. It would be irresponsible to trigger an election when we're in the midst of a third wave. When I just said we need to declare a public health emergency to save lives in Ontario, there's no way I would ever trigger an election right now. Et puis votre suivi, merci beaucoup. Madame Lévesque.
Madame Lévesque, please press star one. Your line is open, Ms. Lévesque.
Ah, OK, parfait. Bon, merci. Donc, si je comprends bien, donc le NPD va voter contre le sous-amendement du Bloc aujourd'hui et l'amendement du Parti conservateur, si je comprends bien. Et mon autre question, c'est qu'on a su que vous alliez vous faire vacciner aujourd'hui. Je pense que vous allez être le premier chef fédéral à être vacciné. Je me demandais juste si vous pouviez nous donner plus de détails là-dessus, comment vous avez eu votre rendez-vous et si vous allez bel et bien recevoir AstraZeneca. Merci.
Oui, avec un grand honneur, je vais être vacciné aujourd'hui. Ça va être AstraZeneca. Je veux montrer aux gens que c'est sécuritaire et c'est important d'être vacciné. Donc, je suis fier que j'ai l'honneur d'être vacciné aujourd'hui. On sait que pour les personnes qui ont 40 ans et plus, c'est ouvert. Donc, j'ai essayé de me mettre sur une liste et j'ai réussi d'avoir une occasion d'être vacciné. Donc, j'encourage tous les gens dans n'importe quelle région, si vous êtes éligible à ce moment d'être vacciné, prendre n'importe quel vaccin est disponible au moment. Et c'est pourquoi, à ce moment ici, à Ottawa, l'AstraZeneca est disponible, donc je vais le prendre et je veux encourager tout le monde. C'est essentiel que tout le monde est vacciné. Ça va vraiment aider dans la bataille contre la pandémie et la COVID-19. C'est essentiel d'être vacciné. Yep, en anglais pour la réponse. So yes, I'm really honored and thankful of the opportunity to be able to get vaccinated today. It is really important that everyone, no matter where you are, as soon as you're eligible to get vaccinated, please get vaccinated. In Ottawa, the list opened up for people at 40 and older. I'm 40 and older. And I put my name on a list, and I was able to get an appointment today. So I'm really honored and really thankful that I can do this, and I'm hoping I can encourage people to get the vaccine. Whatever vaccine is available, get it. It is safe and it is important, and it is vital in the fight against this pandemic that we all get vaccinated. It will help in the battle. It'll help keep people safer. It'll help prevent people ending up in the emergency rooms, in the ICU units. So please get vaccinated.
Thank you. Opérateur, avons-nous d'autres questions?
Thank you. Merci. La prochaine question, the next question is from Marie Vastel, Le Devoir. Please go ahead. Your line is open. Votre ligne est ouverte.
Oui, bonjour, M. Singh. J'aimerais revenir sur les votes, là, sur le sous-amendement du bloc, mais aussi les autres votes sur le budget. Vous avez dit que sur le sous-amendement du bloc, quelques députés vont voter pour par principe. Pouvez-vous préciser combien, s'il vous plaît? Puis vous avez pas vraiment répondu à la question de ma collègue, à savoir comment vous allez voter sur l'amendement du Parti conservateur demain et sur la motion principale du budget lundi. Je comprends que vous ne voulez pas déclencher d'élection, j'ai très bien compris ça, mais concrètement, comment est-ce que vous allez voter? Est-ce que ce sera la même chose en nombre insuffisant pour faire tomber le gouvernement? Vous allez vous abstenir ou carrément voter pour ou contre? Pouvez-vous préciser pour l'amendement et pour la motion en tant que telle?
Oui, je peux préciser pour l'amendement. C'est un vote qui s'en vient rapidement. Donc, dans ce cas, on va avoir, on peut vérifier avec notre House Leader, notre leader en chambre, qui va vous donner plus de détails. Mais on va avoir un minimum 3 ou 4 députés qui vont voter pour le sous-amendement, et en général, notre parti va voter contre le vote. Effectivement, on va voter contre l'idée d'avoir une élection parce qu'on n'est pas d'accord avec une élection, donc on va voter contre ça. Le gouvernement libéral a dit que c'est un vote de confiance et on veut être extrêmement clair. Les Canadiennes ont dit, dans cette troisième vague, où plusieurs personnes tombent malades, où les hôpitaux sont pleins de gens, où les travailleurs de première ligne sont désespérés à ce moment. C'est une erreur de déclencher une élection et je suis ferme sur ce point. Donc, on ne va pas déclencher une élection. Moi, comme chef et mon parti, on ne va pas déclencher une élection.
Merci. Vous n'avez toujours pas répondu, donc je vais reposer la question pour la troisième fois. Comment est-ce que vous allez voter sur l'amendement des conservateurs et sur la motion du budget en soi?
Donc, j'ai dit clairement qu'on va voter contre la motion du conservateur. Ça, c'est quelque chose qui s'en vient. Et on garde notre étape exacte pour le budget, mais je peux encore répéter qu'on ne va pas déclencher une élection. On ne veut pas la faire, on ne va pas la faire.
Excusez, ça veut dire quoi? On garde une étape exacte sur le budget? Je comprends pas ce que vous dites.
Vous allez voir ce qu'on fait dans quelques journées.
Parfait, merci. Donc, passer aux questions en pièces. We have a first question.
Hi. Mr. Singh, I just wanted to ask you about a story that our colleagues at Radio-Canada have broken. They've learned that Canada wants to set a new target for its emissions. They hope to lower emissions somewhere in the range between 40 and 45% below 2005 levels. So that's, higher than what we've said in the past, what past governments have promised in the past. Do you mind if we get your reaction to that? Do you think it goes far enough? Do you think we need to go further? Do you trust the Liberals to meet those goals, to set them and meet them?
Lots of questions in the one question, so I'll try to work my way through them. First off, we are dealing with the pandemic crisis, but we have not dealt with, or that doesn't mean that the other crises have gone away. And one of the other most major crises that we're dealing with is a climate crisis. That is an existential crisis. It is the most serious crisis that we're faced with. And the evidence and the science is clear. We have to reduce our emissions to 50% of 2005 levels. That is what we should be doing. And so I wrote a joint letter with our environmental critic, Laurel Collins, saying that the proposal of the Liberal government is not good enough. It does not achieve the goals of 50% of 2005 levels. That's what we need to be doing. Really, to put that bluntly, we have to follow the science to do our part to fight one of the biggest crises we're up against. And it is vital that we act immediately. Our planet depends on it. Our environment depends on it. And it's not just the future of our kids that depend on it. It's our present. The impacts of climate crisis are impacting us now with forest fires and flooding and other extreme weather that is impacting us right now. So we have to act, and we have to take this very seriously. New Democrats are committed to it, and that's why we wrote this letter, to say that the proposals of the Liberals are insufficient. They're not good enough right now. So we need to push for more. And I am concerned that the Liberals will set a target and not meet it. And that's why we've been saying we need better accountability. The UK has presented a really good solution around accountability, a way that'll hold governments to account when they set a target. And it has worked in the UK. It has shown to be effective in keeping governments to account and actually achieving the goals of reducing emissions. That's what we want. At the end of the day, we want results to protect our planet, to protect our environment, and to protect the present as well as the future.
And if I could just get you to say that en français, s'il vous plaît.
OK, oui, bien sûr. Donc, ce que le gouvernement libéral propose en tant que réduction des émissions, ce n'est pas suffisant. La preuve, la science est claire. On doit couper nos émissions en demi, effectivement, 50% des niveaux de 2005. Donc, ce que le gouvernement libéral propose, ce n'est pas suffisant. Et pour mettre la table un peu, c'est essentiel de reconnaître que oui, on a une pandémie, c'est une crise, mais ça ne veut pas dire que les autres crises sont déjà réglées. On a des autres crises, et une crise primordiale pour les gens, pour le maintenant et aussi pour le futur, pour notre planète, pour notre climat, pour l'environnement, c'est la crise climatique. Et on doit agir comment on veut vraiment gagner la bataille. On doit gagner la bataille. On a besoin de la gagner. Nos vies et la vie de notre planète se dépend. Donc, on a écrit une lettre avec ma porte-parole pour l'environnement, Laurel Collins, députée de Victoria, et on a dit qu'on doit être plus audacieux et on doit suivre la science. Ça veut dire avoir une cible de 50% de 2005 des niveaux d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre.
Mr. Singh, just coming back to the budget, does the NDP intend to propose any amendments? And then just what do you think about the Liberals making these amendment votes confidence votes? Do you think that's the right strategy?
I really wanted to mention this, and I forgot to, so I appreciate the question. The fact that the Liberals are making these amendment votes into confidence motion votes is unprecedented. I'm not sure that's happened in recent history, but I certainly can tell you what it does show us is that the Liberals are looking for an excuse to go to an election. In a minority government, making amendments to the budget is pretty normal. It's pretty understandable that's what would happen. The fact that they are making that a confidence vote and not just the budget itself, which is of course a confidence vote, but they're making amendments as well, is a clear indication on top of a whole bunch of other indications that this Liberal government and Justin Trudeau are looking for an excuse to go to an election. They're looking for one. And that should be very clear. We are not going to give them one. That should also be clear. And I forgot the first part of your question.
any amendments that you
yes.
propose, which will probably be confidence votes?
Well, as we stated before, we don't want to trigger an election. That is not my goal. So we've laid out the things that we want to see and the things that we want to do. We want to see a tax on extreme wealth. We wanted to see pharmacare move forward, universal public pharmacare for all. But what we're challenging the Liberal government now is if they're serious about getting childcare done, we've been campaigning on that. We agree with that. That's great. Let's get it done. What's the timeline? What are the deadlines? We're going to focus on actually getting some of these things done. Is this just an pre-election stunt, or do they really mean it? If they mean it, we are here to pass legislation. We are serious about getting this done. Let's increase the federal minimum wage and let's bring childcare in. They set a target of reducing the cost of childcare in half by next year. That's a bold goal. We want to see that happen. We want to help families out. Let's get it done.
Chris Reynolds, Canadian Press. With the calling on the government to invoke the Emergencies Act, I'm wondering to what extent you've heard provinces asking for that to happen, or if this is something you think the government should be doing proactively, regardless of whether the provinces want to see it.
Well, we've been really focusing on this call when it comes to Ontario, because while the situation is troubling across Canada, without a doubt, it is extremely urgent right now in Ontario. The situation, from my conversations with frontline healthcare workers, their voices cracking when they explain to me entire families are being admitted to the ICU. The fact that doctors are now having to make a call between who gets a ventilator or who doesn't based on who's more likely to survive, that is a heartbreaking and horrible position to be in. And that is because of how bad things are in Ontario. Field hospitals, younger people getting sick. And the reality is, in Ontario right now, particularly in the GTA, it is the most vulnerable. They are the most vulnerable people that are getting sick. Racialized people in poor communities are getting sick. People that are already faced with massive challenges are the ones getting sick, and the ones that aren't getting the vaccine. This is desperate. And it is not good enough for Justin Trudeau to sit back and say, I've done my job. When this is happening, when our country's on fire, when one of the most populated province is up against an urgent crisis, we need to act as if it's an urgent crisis. And that's why I'm saying we've got to declare a public welfare emergency under the Emergencies Act. It's not something I take lightly. I haven't called for this throughout the whole pandemic, but the situation is dire. And I've spoken with healthcare workers, my friends, who tell me how bad things are, and we have to do something about it. And it is heartbreaking that it is the most vulnerable people that are getting sick, and their entire families are getting sick. So we've got to do something about it. And it's not enough to just hope that the premier does something. We've seen he doesn't care. And it's not enough for the prime minister to say, okay, I've done my part. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to stand by while people's lives are at risk and while we can do something about it.
This morning, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said that Liberals have known for some time that childcare, a national childcare plan funded by the federal government, is the right thing to do. It's just now, amid the pandemic, we see it's also the smart thing to do economically. Do you take her words earnestly that the Liberals have felt it was right, but just not feasible until recently?
I take issue with that. I think I wish in this case I had a colleague that was a woman that could stand up and say this, because I feel like it's not my place. But from speaking to women who are so struggling with the deal with having to care for kids, colleagues that I work with tell me how difficult it is to care for kids, to care for aging loved ones, and to also deal with this pandemic, and then to not have access to childcare at all. This has been a problem for a long time. This has been a crisis for a long time. A lot of women haven't joined the workforce because they simply can't afford childcare. It has been a crisis for years. And yes, now it's been exposed by COVID-19, but it didn't just happen because of COVID-19. This has been a problem for a long time. And to just suggest that all of a sudden this is a priority, well, why did they make the promise to do it decades ago? Because it was a priority, it was important decades ago. And it still is. And maybe it's even more than ever because of the crisis. But to suggest that something new happened now, it has always been a problem. Women have always been struggling, and it is wrong that they've been struggling. And we need to have this happen. And do I think that the Liberals are honest about it? The reality is this. I'm not happy to say this because I want to see this happen. They just promised pharmacare, and it's as if they don't think we're going to notice. Like, we're not going to notice that they just campaigned on it in the last election, not that long ago, 2019. They just campaigned on it, said it was a priority, made announcements about it. The throne speech came around. They announced it again, and they think somehow we're going to forget that they just said it was a priority and now have completely backed away from it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very understandable that people say, well, you just made a promise that was so serious and then walked away from it without batting an eye. What's to say you don't do the same thing now? What's to say this isn't just a ploy before an election? A lot of people are cynical, and sadly, rightly so.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. Opérateur, voilà une dernière question.
Thank you. Merci. La dernière question, the last question is from Raymond Filion, TVA. Please go ahead. Your line is open. Votre ligne est ouverte.
Merci. Bonjour, M. Singh.
Bonjour.
Est-ce que le gouvernement fédéral devrait recourir à la loi sur les mesures d'urgence pour interdire les voyages entre les provinces, selon vous?
C'est une question soulevée à quelques reprises. Je pense que ce qu'on doit faire immédiatement, c'est de suivre tous les conseils des experts en matière de santé publique et de mettre en œuvre des mesures immédiates pour arrêter la propagation de la COVID-19. Donc, ce que les experts ont dit, c'est l'outil le plus important à ce moment, à cause de la preuve qui montre que c'est dans les milieux de travail où on vu la plus grande infection. C'est dans le milieu de travail. Donc ça, c'est pourquoi tous les experts, la table de science en Ontario, tous les experts sont d'accord qu'on a besoin d'une amélioration d'accès à un programme de congé des maladies payées. Ça, c'est pour moi la priorité parce que toute la science, toute la preuve montre que ça, c'est essentiel à ce moment. Et pour moi, on doit prendre des décisions qui suivent la preuve, les chiffres, la science.
Merci.
Merci.
Perfect. This concludes the press conference. This is la conférence de presse. Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. The conference has now ended. Please disconnect your line.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.